let's talk about the one thing that pays your salary, or if you're not getting a salary from yourself, the thing that should be paying your salary and why it's not working for you. So here's my question for you. What's the one thing that pays your salary? The thing that actually brings in the revenue. Now, before we answer that, let's do this. Here's what it's probably not. It's probably not reading emails. It's probably not social media, though we'll talk about that in just a moment. It's probably not learning things. It's probably not most of the things that are on your to-do list. It's probably not going to more meetings, managing people. What are all those different things? All the things that spend most of our times. But my guess is that those things that were on that probably not list are probably filling up 80% of your time during the week. So here's what it probably is. Once the thing that you sell has actually been created. So most of you who follow me are course creators, coaches, writers, speakers, those things. Once you've created that thing that you're going to sell, the thing that brings in the income is marketing and selling. That's the thing that brings in income. But most people deprioritize this. They oftentimes only do it when they feel like it or when it's needed. It's like, when it's needed? Isn't it always needed? Don't we all know that it's always needed? In other words, what most of us do is they avoid the very thing that makes us the money, and then we wonder why we don't make much of it. Does this sound at all familiar to you? Might you be somebody who falls into this category of being guilty of the crime of not doing the thing that brings in the revenue, or not spending enough time on the thing that brings in the revenue? So let's fix this so that we can make more, so that we can spend our time enjoying our life instead of being frustrated because we haven't got enough money to live our life. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a series of 3 recommendations here. Simple recommendations, not hard at all, really. Number 1, make a list of what activities that you do really bring in the revenue. As I said, they're probably going to be sales and marketing oriented, but for you, they may be different. It's your life. It's your business. Whatever it is that actually brings in the revenue, those things need to go on that list. Then you probably are going to put down some big things. And so add bullet points down below those to add details. So it's not just like marketing, calling clients, calling prospective clients. It's the things that go below that that become really valuable to you. What you're probably going to end up is you're probably going to end up with a page or 2 of activities for each of the key things that you do to bring in revenue. Okay? All right, that's the first thing. Just make a list of everything you do that brings in revenue. Number 2, prioritize them by effectiveness. In other words, what's working for you? Now, I hesitated as I wrote this word effectiveness and say what's working for you, because there are some things that are on that list that you are not doing that you know should be doing well for you. And so let's modify this phrase, what's working for you, to what would work for you, and so that we can include those things in that. Okay? Now, while we're on this subject, and we made this list and we prioritized them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., of all the things that are working for you. Now, if you want to do an interesting exercise, beside each, write down how much time you actually spent doing that thing last week. My guess is that that's going to turn out to be less than 20% of your time. Taking out the things that are actually product delivery. So some people say, well, I'm a coach for a living, and so that's what brings in the revenue. So, but if you take out the time you actually spent coaching, or the time you actually spend on these group calls, or the time you actually spent, now the other things are the things that create the time that you spend actually coaching, the time you spend on the phone, those kinds of things. Okay. So what we're looking at here is not so much, am I doing things that bring in revenue? Am I doing the things that create the opportunity to do the things that create revenue? That's what we're really looking at here is, are you prioritizing time to spend on marketing and selling? So if these things, taking out the actual product delivery parts, are taking up 20% of your time, yeah, these are the most important activities for bringing in the revenue. Okay. Now take that prioritized list and take the top X of those 5, we'll just say. Okay. And the third point, set goals for the next week. What will you accomplish in each of those areas, and how much time are you going to spend on them? And the reason why I break that into 2 things is because ideally you're focusing on something measurable. How much time am I actually going, what am I going to actually accomplish in that area? But sometimes it helps to put this how much time in here too, because sometimes it's going to take 3 weeks of work to get to the point that thing's done. Okay, then let's make sure we say we're going to spend 18 hours on that this week, whatever it is that's moving you towards accomplishing it 3 weeks from now. All right. So we made a list, we broke it down, we then prioritized it, and now we are setting goals for those top X, like 5 of them that we're going to do this week. And sometimes the things that you're going to work on this week is one of them, because you got a heavy week, you got a conference, you got to go to, whatever it is. And so, but each week you should have at least 1, if not 3 to 5 of the things that bring in revenue prioritized on your list for the week. And so now let's go accomplish these things. What do you actually have to change to be able to achieve these goals? So if you're planning to spend 20 hours this week working on that, that means half of your working hours during the week, the things you used to be doing during those 20 hours have to go away. So what are you going to change to allow you to spend those 20 hours or 5 hours or whatever it is? Something's got to change, because in the past, you've known you should be doing it, yet you haven't been doing it. Let me give you a couple of suggestions. First one. This one revolutionized my life. Just work on them the first thing in your day. Now, I am not necessarily the most productive during the first of my day, but what I find is when I work on all the other stuff, then what that leaves is whatever time's left over to work on the important stuff. Flip that. Work on the important stuff first, and then everything else will fill the time left in the rest of the day. In other words, let's focus on your marketing and selling activities, or whatever it is that brings in the most revenue for you, first thing in the day, so that it becomes the thing that for sure gets done, and everything else works around it to fill the rest of the remaining time. Number 2, trade out non-revenue producing activities for those that actually produce revenue. So you may realize we had a great discussion at church yesterday, of all things, about social media. And one of the comments that was made is, are you a consumer or are you a producer? And the point is, social media can be incredibly valuable if you're producing. But if you're just sitting there, okay, all right, here we go, and you're scrolling and you get into the death scroll of social media, where an hour and a half later, you're still scrolling, waiting for the next dopamine hit because they keep hitting over and over and over again. That's consuming, not producing. And so maybe you take out the 2 hours a day that you were spending consuming social media and trade that out for half an hour of producing social media, because you know that creating a reel is going to become a revenue producing activity for you. That leaves another hour and a half that I can do things, and I still get some social media dopamine hit because I'm producing something. And then you go forward from there. Number 3, buy accomplishment, like pay for it by delegating to others. So whenever you delegate to others, you're actually buying accomplishment. If you think about it that way, it's like, okay, can I spend some money and pay somebody to make this thing happen for me, whether it's an outsourcer or an employee or whatever that is. How can I buy progress down this thing? Or maybe how can I buy, remember those 20 hours of work that we were doing that we now have to replace with activities that actually produce revenue? Maybe I could delegate those 20 hours to somebody so that I've got those 20 hours and can work on the things that actually produce revenue. All right? I'm going to make a bold statement here. If you switch to focusing on what brings in revenue in your life, so even if you ignore everything else I just said and only say, I'm going to focus every day on putting some things on my list that bring in revenue and I'm going to do them every day, bold statement, your revenue will improve. And literally that could make all the difference in your life. All of a sudden you got enough revenue coming in to be able to go on vacation, be able to walk away from work to go to your child's soccer game, to be able to not have to work all night. All those things could literally change your life by focusing on the thing that brings in revenue, which for you is probably marketing and sales. How could you do more of that in your life? Even if you don't particularly like it, it's important because it's the thing that will change your life. What's your thoughts? Put them in the comments. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.